All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome back. I hope all of you had a break. I don't know for parents. I always feel bad saying that because I know some parents like work during the break and like they're like, I didn't have 2 weeks off. I hope that you at least were able to take some time and rest and rejuvenate. I'm not gonna lie, but that week before the break, I was done. I was exhausted. Uh, I was wiped out. During the break, I was able to very much rest and, um, you know, just take time. I had days where I didn't even know what day of the week it was. And that was an amazing feeling. So I hope everybody at least had a little bit of time to rest and rejuvenate. Our topic today, we do this topic, if you guys have been with us for a number of years, we do this topic, this is always our first topic when we come back in January. And it's finding your spark. The reason we always do this topic at this point of the year, it's kind of a nice thing. New year, think about your goals and think about like what you really want to prioritize in your life. So we're not talking about New Year's resolutions, but kind of like this time of like taking some time and reflecting about what your priorities are and what you're like spending your energy on. So Yvonne, I know this is your favorite topic. So take it from here.
So good morning, everyone. I picked up this topic in an internship. It was the worst internship ever. I shouldn't have said that because now you're going to be like, where does this come from? And one of the things I really appreciate about it is that, I didn't realize that some of the things that I'm passionate about have really been things that have been with me since I was young. And so now when I have kids, we've talked about this before where our kids are passionate about things that maybe we're not so passionate about right now, like video games, things like that. But they evolve, passions change. So again, I picked this up at internship. I think it's important that everybody has something that just kind of gets them going. And what is that for you? When I look back at my life, the one constant for me has been that I've always been very passionate about people. I always kind of befriended the underdog. I always, went out of my way to talk to people. I think part of it was like how I was raised. I mentioned this before. My family actually lived on a big property where we took care of veterans who had really significant mental health issues. And so I never occurred to me that this all kind of came together for me. And so even when I was very young, I was going around and helping and talking to people and making sure that, they were all fed and doing all these things. And that kind of just became something that always made me feel really good, just helping people. My parents called me chatty. They said I would talk to strangers and I'd talk to everybody, which hasn't really changed. My husband calls it annoying. Why do you have to have a full-on conversation with the lady at the grocery store about her divorce? He'll always ask me how do you know her? And I'm like, I don't. And he's like, why are you talking to her about all that stuff? I'm like, I don't know. I just like to talk to people and people open up to me. And I always think that's an honor when somebody will share their deep, dark secrets with you. I think that's really cool. My kids get embarrassed. They find it really annoying. Oh God, here mom goes again, talking to this person about stuff that's none of her business. But for me, it's I want to know what makes people tick. I want to know everything about everyone. I want to know what brings them joy. I want to know what worries they have. I don't know why. Maybe I'm nosy. I don't know. I just do. And if there's ever any way that I can help, I always want to do that. What makes people feel alive? What's happened in their past that's impacted them? What are people's goals? When I think of my husband's job, it sounds like the most torturous thing in the whole world. He runs facilities and does real estate stuff, and it just sounds really awful. But when I talk about my job, he's like, that sounds like the worst thing in the whole world. Why do you want to listen to people cry all day? And you hear all these sad stories. How do you do that? And so I think it's really cool that we all have our gifts, we all have our passions, and it works. And when we're talking about a spark doesn't necessarily have to be what you end up doing. You might be passionate about something that isn't your career, right? And so if you think about the things that you really enjoy, maybe some of them are your career, but maybe some of them are just things that you enjoy on the weekends, or things you enjoy to do with your family, or things you enjoy to do alone. It doesn't necessarily have to be your career. So when we're talking about sparks, it's really easy to get a little bit judgmental of like, oh my gosh, my kid's spark is video games. How is he going to turn that into a job? And it doesn't have to be that. So it's just about learning how to be present in this moment with where they are right now, without judgment. And I think that is a difficult part, because I thought video games would have like subsided by now, and it's like actually intensified. And so I'm like, oh gosh, like, are my kids ever gonna like be passionate about anything else? So where does passion come from? Passion is a result. Passion is an energy. It's the feeling that you have when you're engaged in something that you truly, truly enjoy, that you truly love. It could be the feeling that you have if it's something that you could do for free. And so this always brings me back to my first internship in a high school. I didn't know I was going to be a school social worker. I was in my undergrad program, and I got an internship here in Eastside. And back in those days, our interns did not get paid. So I worked for free. I worked for a whole school year. And every single day I got up to come and do high school social work, I loved it. I never complained about getting up. I would get up early. I would get ready. I would get there. I didn't get paid. The more clients they would give me, the happier I was. It was like bizarre. And I kept thinking to myself, like, I can't imagine that one day somebody's going to pay me to do this. Even today, like, even still, like, I'll be meeting with a kid and we'll have a fantastic conversation. And I'm like, that is so wild that they're going to pay me to have that conversation, because I would have done it for free. I've been doing it for free my whole life. And so for me, people are my spark, and I have this special opportunity where it's also my job. So thinking about yourselves, and I always like to start with ourselves first, because remember, we model things for our kids, and if they see us doing things that we're passionate about, they're more inclined to give themselves permission to do the same. If they just see us doing laundry and complaining about cooking dinner, like, a lot of students, and I think I mentioned this before, like, adulting sounds horrible. My mom looks miserable all the time. Like, I don't want to be a grown up. I don't want to do that. But if your kids see you doing things that you love, like, it kind of gives you something to look forward to. Like, adulting isn't like the worst thing in the whole world. Like, we still have fun for ourselves. So for yourself, what is it that you enjoy? Something that you could do for free. A big one would be like, if I told you you have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to do whatever it is you want to do, what would you be excited enough to get up to do? I know Jeannie gets on her bike at like 4:30, so I know that's a thing for you.
Yeah, it's so funny. I'm not excited to do it though. I mean, once I'm doing it, I'm totally fine. But it is it's a myth that it is ever easy to get up at 4:30 in the morning. Like, you just get used to it and you do it, but it's never it's never something that you enjoy doing.
No. And I do like talking to people. I don't know if I would want to get up at 4:30 and do it sometimes, but not always. And I think it's good to like kind of reflect on this, especially with our kids that are high school age now, right? I know some of us have young ones, some of us have older ones, but when I was a stay-at-home mom, I was completely consumed by all things children, food, taking them places. Just my entire life was consumed. I didn't really have space for myself. And it was exhausting. I think back of like these like really wonderful times that I had when they were little, but the reality was it was very stressful. It was very exhausting. And I didn't really have the time, space, or energy to do something for myself. So as my kids have grown, it's given me a lot more time to do the things that I'm actually really wanting to do. So depending on where you are, and again, some of us are getting to that phase where our kids are in high school and they're ready to move on. And what is it that we're going to do for ourselves? Because we're not going to be taking care of our children forever. Maybe we'll be taking care of grandchildren, but that's not something we're going to do. So what is it that you would want to be spending your time doing? And again, the question I asked, go ahead.
I'll tell you guys mine. And I've shared this before. I think I like every year I tell you like this is mine. I love to read. And like that's really when I was like chilling and I didn't know what day it was over the break. I honestly, you guys, I read like 24 books. I read very fast and I read a lot. And I just love it. It's how I want to spend my time. It's a total escape for me. I just love it. Like actually this morning when because I finished a book last night and it's like this really cool series. Because this book was so great. It's called The Court of Thorns and Roses. Highly recommend. It was so good. My hairdresser recommended it to me over the break and I read it. It was so good. And it's like a whole series. And so I'm like literally this morning I was getting dressed, I was putting on my shoes and I'm like, I'm so sad I have to go to work today because I really want to read my book. Like I really, it was so good. So, but, and this is, I also like, and these are connected. I love to write also. And for years, like I have been like, I want to have time to take this love of reading and like translate this into like my love of writing, and like maybe I can write novels, like I can be a fiction writer, like this is something that I could do, like I would love to do it, like this is like my secret dream in my retirement is to be a writer. And so I've like had this goal of like every year, like when we have this conversation, I'm like, I want to start writing. I haven't done it. I've had, but then I also think about my life the past couple of years in dealing with my mom's illness, and just that was like all of my spare time. I didn't have the time. And so like this January, I'm like thinking about like this and like kind of refreshing, like what can I focus my time on? Everybody knows my mom passed away in September, like, but maybe like the silver lining now, like I will have this time to devote to something that I really want to do. And so that was actually then when I was thinking about us having this conversation today, is like thinking about stuff that you've like put off that yes, you really want to do, but you just, for whatever reason, haven't had the time to do it. But maybe, life changes and then you do have the time.
Hope so. I definitely hope so. I want everyone to take a minute and I want you to go back, and it's not going to be a rhetorical question. I'm going to have you guys put this in the chat, but I want you to take a moment to go back and think about the teenage version of yourself. Okay. What was it at that time that drove you, that motivated you, that got you up in the morning?
When I was a teenager, it was my mother yelling at me to get up.
Right? My mom honking, laying on the horn in the driveway at 7 a.m. Yeah. So did I.
I'm going to read some of the ones in the chats, if you
please.
So Vincent says daily walk or bike with a goal of 10,000 steps or more. Rupert enjoys cooking, the prep, the cook, the cleaning up. Amy says, good morning and happy new year. I love reading, organizing, planning with a paper planner. Oh, I do love organizing with I love a paper planner. As a teenager, it jumped around. I also loved reading and organizing. It says my boyfriend when I was a teen. Yeah, sure.
Oh yeah, sure. Now that my teenage boyfriend's my husband, I'm like, oh my gosh, I could have done so much better in school. Like, and that's my point of like, when I was a teenager, I was not thinking about the college I was going to get into. I was not thinking about my career. I was not thinking about how I was going to buy a house one day. I was thinking about what I was going to wear, who I was going to date, what was going on in like Gossip Central. Like those were the things that motivated me to go to school, besides my mom laying on the horn and like acting wild. And so I have to remember that, and it's important to reflect on that, because sometimes I expect my children to think very differently than I did. Like, why aren't you already thinking about college and your life and it's like in that stage of development, that's just not, they're just trying to figure out who they are. Right. And so I like to think about that, to remind myself of like, okay, thankfully my priorities have changed. My passions have changed, as they do as we age. Right. And so I have to like hope that for my kids that eventually they're going to do that. I remember waking up to my favorite cartoon, Smurfs. My mom would not let me watch the Smurfs. So I'm going to go back one day and I'm going to watch all of them. So I want you to like really think about that, because I think we do have a tendency, I don't want to say judge our kids, but maybe worry about our kids of what their passions are. And let's just remember, like as teenagers, our boyfriends, our makeup, whatever it was, they're probably things that are maybe not the priority now. And I think, again, that's important for us to just acknowledge, because we have expectations for things that we didn't even ourselves do. When I was in high school, my passions were sports, my boyfriend. I stayed at school every day until 7 o'clock for practice. And I kept my grades up so I could continue to play sports. Like, that was a big thing for me. The next part of this is we're going to talk about, and the term is spark champion. And it's basically somebody who supports what you do, no matter what it is, no matter how meaningless it might be in the spectrum of all things. Who was that person? And the reason this is so important is because teenagers who have an adult in their life who truly, truly support them and what they do are way less likely to engage in risky behavior, have depression. Like, just having essentially like a cheerleader in your life is something that is so crucial to your well-being. And not everybody has that. And so when I think back about high school, my fondest memories are playing sports. And it did not matter what time of day my games were. I went to a very small private school, so a lot of our games were very far away. We drove to like Antioch, we drove to San Francisco, because the other little private schools were far away. My dad showed up at every game. My dad drove my friends to games. My dad would bring Slurpees to the softball fields, when we were practicing over the summer. Even when I was young and I was still sitting on the bench, my dad sat through the entire game. I could always look out into the stands and be like, oh my gosh, my dad's there, which of course was embarrassing, when you're young. And my dad had this giant video camera and it was like a whole thing. Did my dad do that because he thought I was going to be a professional athlete one day? I think he knew that wasn't going to happen. So it wasn't like what we were going to get out of it, or what. It was just, he knew how much it meant for me. And he showed up. He tells me now, he's like, I used to clock out and go, not clock out and go to your game and go back to work. I'm like, Dad, he's like, I just didn't want to miss it because I knew how important it was for you. And to this day, I just I'm so grateful for that. And my kids play baseball here and my dad shows up at their games. And that's just for me, it's a lot of energy. I don't know about you, but have you sat through a whole boys baseball game? It's very long. And for me, I have to force myself to sit there and I'm like, oh my gosh, my dad did this from the time I was in third grade on. That's love for me. He knew how much it meant to me. And I'm so grateful for that. And so for me, my dad was my spark champion. He was the one that did all the things. He worked overtime so that I could get basketball shoes, that kind of stuff. It really impacts me. And so when you think about the things that your kids love and they're hard to get on board with, how do you champion them? How do you support that? Especially when it's something hard, like video games. How do you do that? So I don't know if you guys want to just kind of share what you think your kid's spark is right now. Because it might be, you might be on, but you might not be, What do you think, Jenny? What about your kids right now?
Well, they're at such different places, right now. My daughter she's in her junior year of college. She's, definitely looking on and moving rapidly into adulthood and what that means and that sort of thing. And so I think the way I show up for her, because she, will text me and oh, what do you think about this? And and so I'll give her advice. She asks for advice a lot. And so I definitely try to do that. With my son, he's a freshman in high school. And he is just such a freshman boy. He plays his video games. He says he's not into Legos anymore, but he still secretly is. And so I buy him Legos and let him still be a child. I got a kitten from you to give to my son last night. So because I know that he loves pets. He loves to care for things. That's actually something that is this kind of very quiet part of him, but he loves that. And so I try to nurture that.
That's a good one. Rupert, my son is 14 in 2 weeks, 15, and his motivation is his friends and being competitive with them. It's good. Do you guys still have your friends from when you were 14?
Not really. I'm still like, I think that's one thing. Well, so our topic next week is social media. And so again, we'll talk about all the evils and bad things about social media. But one thing I think like I like about social media is I think it's enabled us to still like maintain those connections. So I still am in communication with them. One thing, when my mom died and we had the ceremony of life for her, like 4 of my like best high school friends came and were there with their mothers. And it like that was just it meant so much to me to have them there and have that like connection and like it was like everything that happened, like that was like the thing that like meant the most to me. So
I love that.
yeah.
Vincent says ASB and Interact clubs for my daughter. Clubs are huge. Just feeling that sense of belonging, having tasks to do, projects, something for a good cause, like definitely. And if and I think depending on what age your families are, like sometimes your family is your spark, right? Like especially when your kiddos are younger and you're just so engaged. My biggest worry, and I was just talking to one of our staff members that retired before the break, and I think we don't do, like, our society doesn't do a great job of preparing for retirement and what that means and what that looks like, and having some place to go every day. And then all of a sudden, like being in this like abyss of like nothingness if you don't have a plan. And I think that's another reason to really truly nurture your spark. I have some family members who are really enjoying these like golden years, and I have other ones that I honestly feel like are just waiting for like the end to happen and don't really have anything going on. And I see that and it actually like scares me. I'm like, I don't want to age that way where I'm just kind of like waiting for everything to end. Like I want all the things that I enjoy to be a continuous part of my life, like forever. I want to like be excited about stuff even when my kids aren't there.
I think about this all the time because I look at my dad now, and it was my dad and I like taking care of my mom for the past 2 years,
Mhm.
and like, but especially with my dad because he was the one living with her. I mean, I feel like I had to do a lot of the heavy lifting, like literally, because like transferring my mother because she wasn't mobile, like my dad couldn't do that; he wasn't strong enough, so that was me. But like he was there with her, and so now she's gone and he just has nothing, and he doesn't drive. He was like walking and doing that, but then he had a bad fall, and so now he's not even doing that. He's aged so much in the past 3 months, like it's actually unreal to me. And yeah, I and and he's like, I'm not going to be around for much longer, and I'm like, oh god. And so
Yeah,
I
right.
I just think about like, yeah, but he doesn't have it. Like he watches like old World War II movies. And
Yeah.
like that's what he does. And
And it's kind of like the conversation we have at the end of the year about empty nest, right? And like our kids moving out and moving on and just having this sense of like not being needed anymore. And I mean, it's very heavy if you haven't gone through it yet. And I can't even say I've gone through it because my kids were still local, but there's just this sense of like, I literally poured blood, sweat, and tears into these children for 20 years. And that has been my everything. That has been my passion. That has been my frustration. That has been my job. That has been my joy. And then all of a sudden, it's like, whoa, it's going to be me and my husband talking about, I'm not even sure yet. And so those are another reason again why the sparks are so important for us. Our kids will see us do it, and it'll happen for them too. But really, I think this is a really good time, especially at the beginning of the year, to reflect on like, what do I need? Because if I'm not filled, I can't support my kids. I can't be a good social worker. Like I feel like I really need to take
Well,
care of
and I think
myself to
that,
be able to take care of other
yeah,
people.
I think it's just really important. Like, we talk about having hobbies, like stuff that you enjoy that are outside of your kids. And, that I have a good friend of mine. Our daughters were like best friends when they were in kindergarten. They're not actually close anymore, but, her mother and I are. She's one of my closest friends. But she's one of these moms, and she works, but like she's like super like involved in the schools, and like, I love those parents. I actually feel I'm not one of those parents myself, but those of you that are those parents, I appreciate you. Virginia's on here, the parent boosters, I appreciate you guys so much. I'm not that person, but my friend is like, that's what she does, and like she is like devoted, and like she writes, and it's funny, like I look at like my kids, because her son is a senior at the same school that my son's a freshman, and like how they operate things versus how I like do it here. Like, so the parent newsletter that I put out every Sunday, I write that, you guys. I do the whole thing, but it, like, the parent at her school, the parents do that. Like, and my friend Amy writes the parent newsletter every week. And I'm like, but her son's a senior. And I'm like, well, two things. I'm like, well, what are they going to do when they don't have you anymore, Amy? She's like, I don't know. They're going to figure it out. But then I'm like, Amy, what are you going to do? Like, what are
Ooh,
you? This has been like, this is her hobby. Like, this has been such a huge part of her life. Like, have you, like, I had a conversation with her a couple months ago about this. I'm like, what's it going to be? Like, you think you, and she's like, I don't know. I have to figure it out. Like, I really, and so she started doing like we now go to yoga every Saturday together. And like, so like, where she's starting to do more, like, and like I need to have things that are just for me. But I think that that's important, especially our kids are in high school. And even if your kids are just freshmen, like those high school years go really fast. And they're going to be out of your house soon. They're going to be moving on and like having, like, they're going to be like where my daughter is now, where like they're starting that adult life. And so we need to, as parents, like this has been such our huge focus. And like, what are we going to do after?
And honestly, I think it might be worse for our kiddos generation. And maybe Amy, you could speak to this a little bit too, if you care to, but I have so many students who, like, I always tell kids, my role here is I'm here to support you through anything that gets in the way of you being happy, healthy, successful. My goals for you are to graduate and do something with your life, but also to enjoy your time here, enjoy your experience. And I, countless times, and I say this every year, ask kids what they do for fun. And I cannot tell you how many blank stares I get. Like, so hyper focused on grades and, college and all this stuff. Like, what do you do that it's not to put on your application? And there are so many of our students who just don't, they look at me like I'm wild. Like, what do you mean? Like, I've had students say, like, what do you mean? And I'm like stuff that's fun. And they're like, and so I always have this struggle with my kids of like, I want them to have fun. I want them to socialize. I want them to do fun things. I also want them to get their work done. So trying to find that balance of like encouraging them to be social, but also making sure that they cover their responsibilities. It's kind of this fine line. And, I know there's parents that are on all sides of the spectrum of like, I don't want my kid to hang out with friends. I want them to just focus on their work and, but like finding that balance. And is that something that you encourage your kids to do? Do you encourage them to do fun things? Do you encourage them to hang out with their friends? Do you discourage it, whether that's verbally or not? What does that look like for you in your house? I think that's something that, and you don't have to answer that out loud, but just to reflect on yourself. Like, am I encouraging my kids to be, social, to have some joys in their life on top of all the responsibilities that they have? Because if they're already not having fun, life gets hard. Adulthood gets very difficult. There's a lot of challenges that come with this. So if you don't already have those passions, those joys, it's going to be even harder. And so I'm glad I have some of the things that even from childhood that I still, hold on to. But I worry, like, for our kids, like, are they enjoying life? And what type of dialogue are we having with them? And we talk about this all the time. Like, are grades the first thing that you ask your kids when they get home? How was school? How was the test? How did you do? Like, are we asking questions about the other parts of their life? Because they are made up of a lot of other parts, their personalities, their passions, their environment, their friends, their family. Are we also having conversations about that? So what does that look like for you in your house, as far as encouraging your kids to get out, get some fresh air? I remember my mom, her way of like telling me to like take care of myself, she would come into my room that was like totally pitch black. She would draw open the blinds like all like wild, like just the sun would come in and she'd be like, go outside and get some fresh air. And I'm like, I understand now like why that was important and why living in like a little, you know, mole's quarters was probably bad for my mental health. But that was kind of her way. It was never like, you should go and hang out with your friends and do fun stuff. Ooh, Virginia, what you got for us? Good morning.
Good morning. That's one thing I currently struggle with. So the way I was brought up, my mom said I was never allowed to work because she didn't want me to get the taste of money, right? So I went all through high school without working. Well, now I have my teenager, specifically my senior, and he wanted to work, and I told him no, like, I want you to focus on school, I want you to have fun and all that stuff, I don't want you to work. So we went back and forth. He's like, why would you not want me to work? Well, then, you know, he started to get into trouble and do other things. So I said, well, maybe if he stays busy with working, you know, that will help, you know, keep him out of trouble, stay focused. So I allowed him to go to work. Well, now he's like a workaholic and he loves to work, and if he's not at home in his room, he's working. And so I tell him, like, go out, go have fun. He's like, no, I want to go to work. And I know he enjoys it, but I'm like, dang, like it's so hard because is it good that he's learning responsibility? I hate for him to start too early and be like, dang, I've been working all my life since I was a teenager. You know, I really wanted him to enjoy his life. So that's one thing that I really struggle with is him really wanting to work, which is not a bad thing, but I prefer for him to not work until he really has to.
I hear you on that one. That's such a tough one because it's like they probably are like, how am I going to have fun without money? Right. So money is important, but and my hope would be, I don't know where he works, but my hope would be that there's some social components of work and the people there are cool and that he's like engaging in that way. I hope.
Well, the good thing is, yeah, he seems to really love his job and he looks forward to going. So I guess, you know, that's a good thing that we have somewhere to look forward to. And, you know, you have fun doing it and you enjoy it other than, like you said, having to dread to go to work. So I guess that's a good thing.
But it is like total like mom to worry, right? Like you should be being a kid. You're going to work the rest of your life, right? My mom would always say, you're going to work the rest of your life. And, you know, but I didn't want to be broke either. So it was like, you know, this hard one. But I think that he found something that he likes and he's getting paid for it and gives some structure, you know, I think that might be okay.
Sean has her hand up.
Good morning. Hi. So I could relate to everything the previous parent said and then some. I think what I'm struggling with now is kind of the opposite. You know, we've had a pretty stressful couple of years. My husband passed away of 21 years. And so we're navigating with that, being a widow, single parent. My daughter, she's in a 10th grade. So she's seeing all this adulting. And she's like, no, I don't want to grow up. Mom, I don't want to grow up. I don't want to grow up. So I want her to, and then on the flip side, what the other parent was saying, her time is not being used wisely. It's too much video. It's too much social media. It's too much. So I want her to work. Not because of the money, but I want her to work to get off that damn social media. So I can relate to a lot of that.
So that's you've seen a lot, and so she knows like, oh, being an adult is going to be tough,
right?
Wanting her to have the opportunity to like enjoy some of the stuff too, but not too much.
And Sean, to your point, like I think like as a parent, like I think all of us as parents, like we want our kids, like, God, keep in your childhood. Like it's adulting is hard. Like it's not like you have so many responsibilities and bad things and like all that pressure. So yeah, like, but you also want them to and when they're teenagers, learn that responsibility and like learn like, I'm totally with you on getting off social media and like, um, and with my son, he's not actually on social media, has no interest in that at all, which
Oh, so
good.
lucky. So
But
lucky.
he's like completely on the video games. I mean, it's not like he's not on the screen. He's not doing anything productive. He's playing a video game constantly.
Mhm.
He's just not on Instagram doing it. So
Yeah.
Oh gosh. See a couple of hands.
Amy, do you have something to say? It's okay if you're not on video. Are you there, Amy? She's having internet issues. Maybe not.
I guess you can.
That's all right. Virginia, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I do, although it bothers me that he's like a workaholic so early on and I want him to focus on school, I do notice little things like he'll be like, Mom, do we have any plans this weekend? Like as a family, he goes, because I want to work. So at least he takes family time into consideration. Or I'll tell him, hey, make sure you don't work this weekend. We're all going camping, or we're all going here, or we're all going there. So that's a good thing. I guess that's part of learning responsibility.
Very thoughtful that he checks in with you like
Very
that. My kid doesn't even care what that.
Yeah, he does. He'll, because he knows like when we do family things, it's fun and he really enjoys, and I really, try to make them as happy as possible and include all of them into doing fun things and stuff like that. So he'll be like, Mom, do we have anything planned this weekend? Because I'm gonna work. And I'll be like, yes or no. So yeah,
I'm also impressed that you have plans for the weekend.
I know. How do you have energy for that?
I know, like that's like something that like my daughter will ask me that too. Like, do we have plans for the weekend? And I'll be like, no, of course not.
Why would we do that?
well, let me just add, I work from home, so I want to get out of the
You
house.
want to get out of the house.
Oh, gotcha.
That makes a big difference. Totally understand.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Everybody else, my husband may be like, oh, what do you have planned for this weekend? But me, I'm like, we're going out.
That's like when I was at home, like with the kids, and my husband would come home from work, and I'm like, "What are we gonna do?" And he's like, "Nap, like nothing." I was like, "Oh man, I'm ready to get out of this house." But I do think that's adorable that your kid checks in with you. And my mom always tells me, she's like, "You never know which of your family outings will be the last for your kid as they get older, so enjoy them." And so the fact that my kids still want to hang out with me, like, somebody told me, they're like, oh, it's because you pay for everything. I'm like, I don't care. I do. But, our latest thing, I think I told you this, Jenny, is we've been doing escape rooms and the kids are loving it. And it's hilarious and it's fun. And so the fact that like my 20-year-old, my 17-year-old and my 16-year-old like want to hang out and do that with the family, I'm there for it. So, because I don't know when that's gonna end.
Like, actually, we might try that as a family activity. That would be fun.
You should record yourselves, because my husband and I got into it a few times and it was kind of hilarious. So maybe there's some of you that don't know your passion yet, or maybe you want to encourage your kiddos to figure out what it is for them. And so I have these questions, and I'll have Ginny send them out because they're pretty good questions that I want you to reflect on for yourself and give yourself more time, but I'll kind of just go through them briefly. The following 7 questions will assist you in discovering and articulating your passions. Like maybe you don't even know how to say what it is that you love to do. So think to yourself, or if you want, you can throw them in the chat. You can throw your answers in the chat if you'd like. But be as descriptive as you'd like. Question 1, what do I most often give to others? It could be baked goods. It could be laughter. It could be anything. So just reflecting for yourself, not for your kiddos. What do I most often give to others? Got it?
Got it.
The second is, what do I have the most fun doing? I have my notes from here, and mine is like, I play Jeopardy every night. And I have since the day I started dating my husband. This was 30 years ago now. That's our jam. I've never won. I was just telling somebody the story. The only time I almost won was because I watched the episode the night before and I cheated, and he still won. Will never let me live that down. He's like, you couldn't even cheat and win. So something fun that we do. So for you, what do I have the most fun doing? Third question. What do others look to me for? This might be different than the first question of what do we give others, but what do other people look for from you? I think I put at work, it's help or advice, but at home, it's mostly food or a ride. And whatever it is that people look to you for, is it something that you enjoy giving? Okay. The next one is, this might be a hard one, this could be uncomfortable. What am I most often complimented on? And the follow-up question is, how do we respond when we receive that compliment? So what are people complimenting you on? When was the last time you were complimented? And what was it about? It is uncomfortable. And the last question to that one is, and what did that mean to you when somebody complimented you about something that they looked for in you? Okay, Ginny, I already know the answer for this one for you.
Okay.
Number 5. What do I do where I lose all track of time? Reading.
Reading, yes. Yeah.
Anyone else? What do you lose? What do you do where you lose all track of time? I feel like phone calls and like crime documentaries.
Yeah, for me, like reading, but then also like scrolling through my phone. I can lose an hour like so fast.
I was just gonna say that I hate to admit that TikTok takes too much of my time.
I'm impressed with Sean with the gardening because he thinks that's productive. Like,
Did you ever try to like switch your TikTok up to be like stuff that like is gonna get you motivated? Like I'll do like recipes to like try to like feel better about the fact that I've been there for 3 hours.
You won't. I just
Goodness.
learned to crochet because of TikTok.
No way.
hey,
am
there
now
you go. You
I'm
develop
now
the
crocheting.
skill.
That's awesome.
And doing balloon designs, which is what I'm currently working on for a spelling bee that I'm
Oh.
preparing this afternoon.
Oh my gosh. You're so much more productive. I'm like learning TikTok dances and makeup
Oh, no.
strategies. Like I love that. I'm gonna switch it up too. So where do I lose all track of time? Me, Virginia and I are TikTok. Number 6. What do the people closest to me say my passions are? And does it align with what you think they are? That's a good question. Jenny, what do you think my passion is?
Your passion? Decorating.
Ooh, I do. I do like that. That's a good one. And then it kind of differentiates between like enjoyment versus passion. Like I like to get my nails done, but I'm not passionate about it, right? Like those kind of things. Let's see. What did I write? Oh, I put going back to college with 3 kids. I was a total late bloomer. But I was so in that it made it so easy. Like I was so ready to take the next step in my life. I was so ready to do that. And that was my passion, like social work and people and yeah, but decorating. And I like that I like to tie in decorating to like social work stuff. Like the reason I did the staff lounge is because I wanted people to feel better about being at work, right? Like those, so it all kind of ties together. Thanks for pointing that out. I love it. So that was number 6. What do the people closest to me say my passions are? And does it align with what you actually think? And then number 7 is our last question. What ideas, things, places, or people am I most inspired by? Maybe it's someone on TV, maybe it's somebody you work with, maybe it's a family member. What ideas, things, places, or people am I most inspired by? My little note says super cheesy, I know, but in the 90s, I loved Oprah. I loved the way she engaged the people that were there and made them feel so important, even if it was something like, like I loved that energy. She always had great shoes. She was an active listener, and I like that. So going through those questions, again, I'll have Ginny send them out to you, but just looking over or thinking back of your responses, like, were there any themes that popped up for you? Any constants throughout all the questions? Hopefully. Got you
I think
just
with myself,
reflecting.
like I was able to answer them and like actually be kind of pleased with my answers. Like I was like, oh yeah, I like it actually made me feel like, you know what, I'm doing okay. I'm yeah,
Good.
I'm pretty satisfied with where I am right now, which I think you know, as somebody that's about to turn 50, I think that's a good thing.
Anybody else like satisfied with the answers or feel like I'm not really sure, or still feeling like I don't really know what my passions are? Anything come up for anybody else? We're going to switch over to thinking about our kiddos. We always start these talks with ourselves, mostly because of the importance of modeling behavior. But how are you modeling those passions for your kids currently? What would your kids say you're passionate about? We kind of already discussed this, but like if kids think about aging based on what they see from you, how do they feel about growing up? Does it look fun? Does it look stressful? Does it look boring? I'm gonna ask my on the way home, like based on like my life.
So funny. I don't know what my kids would say, but you know, this is something like I feel like it was a couple of weeks before Thanksgiving. And my daughter sent me this TikTok, speaking of TikTok, about this like mom complaining that she like was always like in the kitchen during holidays and like doing all the cooking and not enjoying it. She's like, Mom, you need to pay attention to this. And I didn't actually ever say anything to her, but I like it actually hurt my feelings that she sent this to me and that that's what she thought of me, because that is something I enjoy. I enjoy like cooking during the holidays and like making a big meal. And it like made me like, does she not realize that I enjoy this? Do I just seem tired and stressed out about it? But like, that's something I love to do. Like, it makes me happy. And it literally it hurt my feelings that she didn't see it as a positive. So
I can see that. I can see that. And here I put growing up, I remember my mom coming home from work. My mom was she was a caretaker for elderly patients. That's what she always did. And she would have these shifts that were like 24 or 48 hours long. So she was gone. And she would come home and she would be exhausted. And she would have, I can literally picture her in my head. She'd have like grocery bags, like walking into the house, and just like tormented to go to the kitchen and like fix something for us. She was cranky. The first thing she would mention is that the house is a mess. And, you know, I get that now coming home from work and I left it clean and then I get home and it's not, you know, I understand the frustration so much greater now. I have so much more gratitude for my mom and what she did. But I don't remember my mom ever doing anything for herself, pursuing any passions. Like I know once in a while she'd go play bingo with my aunt, but like literally like she never really did anything outside of working and doing things for us. I don't know. Gosh, even now I don't know what my mom's passions are. Like my mom's very helpful, but I don't know what she does that she really likes. She likes watching movies, she likes fiction stuff, and but really like truly like I've never seen her do something just for her. She's like the most selfless person I know. And I think that's beautiful in some ways, but it makes me feel bad in other ways. And so as we've gotten older, my husband and I have this kind of, we share this thought of like, man, our parents did so much for us and they spent so much time doing things for us. Like I want to do so much for them as they've gotten older, just because they gave and gave and gave. And you know, I think aging is a gift and it shouldn't feel or look like we're just tortured you know, and I really want to model that for my kids because I want them to, there's a lot of good things in life and I want my kids to experience the good things that I experience, but I'm going to ask them what they think about how my life is right now. Really quickly, just, you know, what is it for your kids right now? What have you noticed your kids passionate about? What is it? How do you feel about it as a parent? Again, it's hard to appreciate the things that are like video games, right? It's obvious to kids if you're trying to like be engaged in their passion and you're faking it. Like I can't even fake it. Like I can't even pretend to want to know about the video games. And if your kids are at that age where they want to tell you all the things, that's like the most torturous thing in the whole world. And you have to like grin and bear it. Because I do think back about my dad being the Spark champion and he probably was tortured at my softball games that were freezing cold up in Pacifica, like, you know, and so I really want to do that for my kids, but I really want to start to help all my kids kind of discover what it is that they want to do. Is it a skill? Is it something that they can do as a career? Is it something just for fun? Like whatever it is. I think one of our jobs as a Spark champion is to provide opportunities to try new things. And that's something that I kind of am challenged by. Like, I don't really take my kids on a whole bunch of new experiences, but I definitely think that's something that we should be doing is giving them opportunity to try new things. When young people develop a spark with the support of several adults, they present a strong picture of health and well-being. Research suggests that they have higher grades, better attendance, more likely to be socially competent, are more likely to be physically healthy, more likely to volunteer, more likely to have a sense of purpose. And I think a sense of purpose is so important, especially in the field that I'm in when it comes to our mental health. It's a lot of times kids feel like they have no purpose for being here, and to have something in your life and then to have people in your life that support that, I think can be life-changing, life-saving. And so, you know, start talking about it. These are good conversation starters that I'll have Ginny send out of just with your kiddos, and maybe they want to talk about it, maybe they don't, but I think it's important to just ask those open-ended questions and just listen without judgment.
All right.
And that's what I got.
Thank you. Hopefully you guys found this helpful and maybe it made you think about some things. Like I said, like the reason we like to do this, like new year and kind of like self-reflection and like what are we passionate about and what are we spending time on? So next week, like I said, we are talking about social media. So come prepared with your questions about that. I'm going to flat out tell you that I have no real answers, because if I had the answer to the social media problem with our teenagers, I would be a millionaire. I would sell a book and I would be very famous because I had all the answers. So I don't, but we can commiserate and like hopefully brainstorm and come up with some ideas together. So I will have some tips that we can all try. But thank you guys. I appreciate you and have a wonderful week. Okay. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.